539 for the first one tonight. Be outstanding, please. 539. $539. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying. Back to number 465. Number 465. Draw me nearer. 465. To thy precious peace. pray the offering for us tonight, please.
Heavenly Father, Lord God, it's great to be in your house again tonight. Thank you for all you've done for us, Lord, and we just ask you to please use this money in a way that glorifies you, Lord. We thank you again for saving us. Pray this all in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Number 641. 641. All that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me. 641. See if you're listening. 641. All that thrills my soul.
Tender and precious, oh, how blessed Just as Isaac's handing them out, there is a sign on the back wall. I may as well do a community announcement while we're doing that. Yes, so some gentleman in the community, don't know him, didn't see him, dropped in and said that he's missing some cats. And it's on the back wall. Said, okay, we'll announce that. I didn't say that we'd announce that, so I don't want to. Really? Okay. He's missing two. He's missing two. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I just. It's at 200 at the moment, so per cat, Maddie was saying if there's 2 cats missing, so. Anyway, I just said it wouldn't answer, that's fine, we can be in the community. Can it be revived, Blue? Okay. yeah. Brendan said it's not a good year for the cat. So, already free cats going on Gumtree, maybe. You know, $200 for a free cat. Anyway, we'll joke about it, but someone missed their cat, and yes. All right. I have at the top of the prayer cards that we're handing out the Florestas. You remember Daniel and I don't remember his wife's name actually. It's not Cruella. Crizel. So it is Crizel? Crizel. But Daniel and Crizel. Floresta. They're the Filipino couple that are up in Newman of all places. And he's down at the moment and dropped in the school this afternoon. And they're looking, they're very interested in what we're doing with the distance education and the books and be able to take that up to Newman. They've got a number of families that are interested in jumping on board. So next year, hopefully we'll be able to help them out with our distance education and through our school. So that's another wonderful blessing. But he's down. One of the reasons they're down, or at least that I got out of him, was they're looking at a demountable building. So they have been meeting at the Baptist Union in Newman, who have a church building, and they've been renting that in the afternoons, I think. Except I think the Baptist Union in Newman run about 20, and Daniel now and their church is running about 40 and 50. And he's a goer. I really appreciate actually his zeal, maybe not his math, but his zeal. And he was really, so 40 to 50, 60, he said sometimes they get on a Sunday morning. He said, so there's more of them in the afternoons than at the Baptist Union. And anyway, the Baptist Union have asked them if they could move on, and I don't know, it wasn't quite getting why they had to move on, but maybe, I don't know, maybe if you're renting it out to someone who's triple the size of what you are, I don't know. So anyway, they've had to move on, and they've had to go find somewhere else. So what they'd like to do is buy a bit of land somewhere, and then they don't have money for a building, so they're going to try and put a demountable and just find the cheapest thing. And they said they're just trying to find a 100 square metre transportable, whatever they're trying to do. So
BHP's doing a big push to support community activities.
Okay.
Have they gone to BHP and said, hey, you need a big call?
He did mention about not necessarily BHP. Well, I think BHP is in Newman because they have got a connections. He's got this thing going on, Miners for Christ, and it's working through BHP as well. And I know he was mentioning about a possibility of one of them with their demountables that they're moving on to try and claim one of them there. But yeah, that might be an interesting option as well. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So they're looking at options, and that's one of the things that they want a permanent place for themselves, and I think good on them. So land is expensive up there.
Yeah, at the moment.
They 200 square meters, I think they said, is going for like $200,000 or something at the moment, which is in the desert. Like that's wilderness stuff. Like 200 square meters, like that's next to nothing. But apparently, if they go out of town by a couple of kilometers, then the prices just really drop, and there's nothing out there in the middle of nowhere. So they're thinking maybe if they can find something out of town, I don't know. Anyway, they're looking at options. And I mentioned that how we are built on Crown land and with a 99-year lease or something like that. So I said maybe there's something up around Newman where there's Crown land as well set aside for non-profits and things like that. And then they could just they've got money for land, but they don't have money for a building. That's why they're trying to find a demountable. Maybe they could put that money then into building something. So anyway, pray for them and options. One thing I really appreciated with him this afternoon, man, he's just full of zeal. Man, he's just like, man, we're gonna do this and do this and this and this and this and this, and he was just go, and really appreciate him. So would you pray for them up there in Newman, doing a good work and reaching as many people as they can up there. So just pray for the Florestas there in Newman, and particularly about a building and a meeting location. They'd greatly appreciate that with prayers. Any other prayer requests tonight? Lisa.
I just continued to pray for Kimmy and her health. So
Yep.
she got a couple of answers on what sort of were the issues and things like that, but there's no short-term fix on things, so it's just a long process of sort of healing after the birth and everything else that went on. So just continue to pray for her. She's very dizzy. That's the biggest thing, is that she struggles with dizziness. So driving is an issue. A lot of other just day-to-day kind of things with looking after the boys and things like that as well. So
Yeah. So she doesn't ask for help, but I'm sure she'd appreciate help of some way or another, food or laundry or.
She wouldn't ask for it.
No, she wouldn't.
No, but she honestly would she'd really appreciate it. Anything, even just like texts and calls and things like that. She really does appreciate it.
Yeah. So don't just remember in prayer.
Yeah. But you remember her.
Yeah. Gemma?
School.
Yeah, we're praying for the school. Thank you. Mics are hot tonight. So yes, pray for our school. Lots of different things going on. We put paperwork in this week, Gemma. Did you know this? We put paperwork in for 7s and 8s. And we now have to wait for them. So we're hoping to enrol with about 10 students, at least 10 students, I think, from what we can ascertain for next term, if we can get the 7s and 8s. So pray for our school and the things that are going there. Thank you, Gemma. Kim?
I just have it unspoken for me, and we're just trying to sell Hannah's car, so if everybody can pray we can sell Hannah's car, that would be a blessing.
Ben's looking for a car. You can just like sell it. Double the price. Huh?
I'm looking for a motor, so I could buy Hannah's motor. Yeah. Just pray for. I just need some transport solutions. I blew an engine up yesterday, so
Oh.
yeah.
All right, there you go.
So if the Lord's got a spare 6-litre V8 sitting in his shed somewhere.
Brendan.
Huh?
Sorry.
Needs a paint job though. It is a real engine. I've heard that go down the street. Josh.
The anniversary service coming up on 4th of July.
Yeah, 4th of
Excited
July.
about that already, so just been inviting a few people from the hospital that have said that they would come.
Yeah.
So just
Saw some fireworks or something for anniversary on the 4th of July. We've got hot dogs and hamburgers and fireworks, isn't that right? So, no, for sure. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to filling the place up and just preaching the gospel again.
amen.
Cahill.
Continue to pray for the city.
Yes.
For people who are coming on a regular basis, and for new people as well.
Sure.
The other one is our lease is up in 3 weeks' time. So we've been looking for a house pretty much the last 6 months, looking for a place. But just pray that we can find somewhere, whether it's renting or buying a place. Whatever God has for us. Just pray that the right place will come up. The other thing is Aaron back in Ireland lost his job, which was kind of a sort of an inevitable thing because he works in the aircraft industry. So and it's like back in Europe, it's like completely dead. So he has done really well to even be working up to the point to where he's just lost his job the other day. And they were supposed to be getting bought out, but he just got an email one day and it was like, yeah, don't come to work tomorrow, everything's done. So that was pretty much it, and it was all over the news and stuff. But he'll be looking for a job now, so just pray for him, because he's very educated and got a lot of qualifications, but it's all in the aircraft industry, like to do with airlines. So
Helicopters as well, isn't it?
yeah, helicopter, everything to do with aircraft and stuff like that. So
yeah,
just pray for him.
Anybody else with a prayer request? All right. Nothing. All right. Well, Josh is trying. No, that's it. That's all she wrote. Remember the missionaries as well when you go to pray for them. Take out your Bibles. Turn to Job. Turn to Job. Chapter 22. We're going to look at 3 chapters tonight. We're going to do again what we did last week and look at one of Job's friends and then Job's response. More excited about the title tonight, but they would have seen that on the. It's on the live stream. It's not here. It's not there. It's on the YouTube. I've called tonight the Wimmelbook of the wicked. Yes, the Wimmelbook of the wicked, which Zach has been incredibly inquisitive all evening when he saw that. What is a Wimmelbook? I don't know if you know what a Wimmelbook is, and I didn't know what a Wimmelbook was until today. But as I read Job, I think you'll also agree with me. Job is painting a Wimmelbook, but we'll get to that. Job 22. Job 22. Verse number 1 says, Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, Can a man be profitable unto God, as he that is wise may be profitable unto himself? Is it any pleasure to the Almighty that thou art righteous, or is it gain to him that thou makest thy ways perfect? Will he reprove thee for fear of thee? Will he enter with thee into judgment? Is not thy wickedness great, and thine iniquities infinite? For thou hast taken a pledge from thy brother for naught, and stripped the naked of their clothing. Thou hast not given water to the weary to drink, and thou hast withholden bread from the hungry. But as for the mighty man, he had the earth, and the honourable man dwelt in it. Thou hast sent widows away empty, and the arms of the fatherless have been broken. Therefore snares are round about thee, and sudden fear troubleth thee. Or darkness that thou canst not see, and abundance of water cover thee. Is not God in the height of heaven? And behold, the height of the stars, how high they are. And thou sayest, How doth God know? Can he judge through the dark cloud? Thick clouds are a covering to him, that he seeth not, and he walketh in the circuit of heaven. Hast thou marked the old way which wicked men have trodden, which were cut down out of time, whose foundation was overflown with a flood? Which said unto God, Depart from us, and what can the Almighty do for them? Yet he filled their houses with good things, but the counsel of the wicked is far from me. The righteous sit and are glad, and the innocent laugh them to scorn, whereas our substance is not cut down, but the remnant of them the fire consumeth. Acquaint now thyself with him, and be at peace, therefore good shall come unto thee. Receive, I pray thee, the law from his mouth, and lay up his words in thine heart. If thou return to the Almighty, thou shalt be built up. Thou shalt put away the iniquity far from thy tabernacles. Then shalt thou lay up gold as dust, and the gold of Ophir as the stones of the brooks. Yea, the Almighty shall be thy defence, and thou shalt have plenty of silver. For then shalt thou have delight in the Almighty, and shalt lift up thy face unto God. Thou shalt make thy prayer unto him, and he shall hear thee, and thou shalt pay thy vows. Thou shalt also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. When men are cast down, then thou shalt say, There is lifting up, and he shall save the humble person. He shall deliver the island of the innocent, and it is delivered by the pureness of thine hands. We'll leave off there. And we'll look at Job's response here in just a second. Josh, do you have the the microphone if anyone has any verses here that stand out, if you read it or you've seen this before, any comments or questions or queries or any of those things out of Job 22. Job 22 is an interesting one. Probably a very interesting verse in the middle of all of that.
Eliphaz is he's having a real go at him, at Job, and doesn't seem to be any empathy there at all to him. And Eliphaz doesn't realise the relationship, I think, that Job has with God. And he's just having a go.
Yeah.
And really, he should show more empathy and not judge.
It's also the he's trying again to do his darndest to get Job to admit that he's done something, anything wrong. Look at verse 5. It says, "Is not thy wickedness great, and thine iniquities infinite? For thou hast taken a pledge from thy brother for naught, and stripped the naked of their clothing. Thou hast not given water to the weary to drink, and thou hast withholden bread from the hungry." He's like, surely you've done any of these things, that you haven't given someone water that needed water, someone you've not given them the food that they required, anything, Job. He's just like, he's kind of just, we would use the phrase grabbing at straws. Just trying to grab anything to try and stick to Job. Surely you can at least admit there's someone that you haven't helped. And he's just, again, like trying to find him guilty and guilty and guilty, which is what all three of them are trying to do. Surely there's something. Down the front here.
I just find it interesting from a book that is purportedly to be the oldest book in the Bible, like 1900 years before Christ, that they talk about the flood.
Right, that was the most interesting verse, I think, in all of the chapter that I mentioned, alluded to.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, so you'll see that in verse 15, 16 and 17. "Hast thou marked the old way which wicked men have trodden?" So again, if you remember from last week about wickedness and how wicked men are there and what happens to wicked men, they're cut down, he says, "which are cut down out of time, whose foundation was overflown with a flood," just completely drowned with a flood, "which said unto God, Depart from us, and what can the Almighty do for them?" So yeah, he refers back to the flood as his prime example. What does God do to the wicked, Job? Well, we know what he's done to the wicked before. He's overflown them. He's completely overwhelmed them with water and flooded them, and they've been cut off in their prime and cut off in where they thought everything was good. He says that's what God does to the wicked, Job. That's his case point to say God judges the wicked, Job, which is true. He does judge the wicked. And the flood, again, is a good example. It's like I was thinking about this, it was like last week where we have those zealous preachers that say, well, bad things happen to those who leave church and walk away from God, and here's Exhibit A and Exhibit B and Exhibit C. And this is what Zophar is saying. Here's Exhibit A, the flood. Wicked men are judged by God, which is interesting as well. That they mention the flood. I mean, they're only just recovering. There's probably either Noah or Seth still alive at this time. So they know either from first-hand experience or at least a second generation. Well, no, Seth is. So they probably know from either first or second generation of actually what took place with the flood. And so they say wicked men were cut down. I find it interesting as well that we get a little glimpse into what the mindset of the people before the flood was. God, depart from us. We don't want God in our lives. As it is in the days of Noah. And that's exactly how it is today. God, we want nothing to do with God. Depart from us. And that's exactly as it was in the days of Noah. Can't help but think that as you read that. That's how it is today. Depart from us. And look at verse 14. Thick clouds are a covering to him, that he shall not see, and he walketh in the circuits of heaven. God he doesn't see what's going on this earth. If there is a God, he takes no interest in the things of this earth. And he is off busy, if there is even a God. Depart from us, let us do our own thing, you do your own thing. And we'll just continue on in this world, living our life, trying to build big houses and trying to get rich and trying to do all the things of this world. And God, you just leave us alone. Man, I tell you what, that is 2021 and 2022 and 2023 if it tracks the same way. God, depart from us. Depart from us. Absolutely, as in it was in the days of Noah. So shall it be in the end. Anti-God. It's interesting to note as well, there's a verse that always scares me, that it says, when the Son of Man cometh, will he find faith on the earth? Which doesn't sound like those that believe in the great revival, or that the church, the triumphant church, that the church will overcome and that the gospel will go everywhere and usher in the new kingdom. That doesn't seem to line up with that. That's right. There is, and yeah, the great apostasy there that is mentioned in 2 Thessalonians. Yeah, so the departing away of the faith. Yeah, so it's what happened before the judgment of God, and the judgment of God is coming, and He's not going to judge a world that righteousness has been ushered into. He's going to judge a wicked world, not a righteous one. That's not rocket science to work out. But that doesn't mean that we just wave the white flag and say, oh, well, it's an ever-darkening world. Just no use to try and win people with the gospel. Don't have that attitude, because we're here to be a light all the way till Jesus comes. And we'll be active and zealous around that very thing. Occupy till I come, exactly. Don't just sit on your thumbs. Go and do something for sure. That's what we're going to do. Anyone else? Comments and thoughts on this chapter? Yeah, it's very interesting what they have to say about the flood. Josh?
Yeah, just in the first part of chapter 22, verse 2, can a man be profitable unto God, and he that is wise may be profitable unto himself? Is it any pleasure to the Almighty that thou art righteous, or is it gain to him that thou makest thy ways perfect? It's interesting here, and then just jumping ahead, I read 23 as well. Just in verse 8, he says, behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I cannot perceive him. On the left hand, where doth he work, but I cannot behold him? He hideth himself on the right hand, that I cannot see him. But he knoweth the way that I take. When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold. My foot hath held his steps. His way have I kept, and not declined. And I was thinking of the whole situation of what's going on, where his friends are basically saying to him, like, you don't profit anything for God. Like, who do you think that you actually are? What gain do you think it is for God that you're living righteously? And I think of Job going through all this, and even with everything going on in his life, where he's going forward and backward to the side left, is a man still looking for God and still seeking for God. And although he doesn't understand fully what's happening, I was just really encouraged that even with his friends having a go at him saying, you know what, what's the point? God doesn't even really need you. And he's going through everything in his life. He's actually still looking and seeking for God. Even though he doesn't fully understand it, he says that my foot hath held his steps, and the way have I kept, and I will not decline.
Yeah.
Although he doesn't understand it, he's a man that's still seeking and still looking for God, even when he can't find him in certain periods of time in his life. And I thought, how difficult is that to do when your friends are around saying, what's the point?
Yeah. I think as well that, again, that's his answer to Eliphaz, which is interesting to say that Eliphaz says in verse 14, he says that this is what the wicked say. The wicked say in verse 13, how doth God know? Can he judge through dark clouds? Thick clouds are covering to him, that he seeth not, and he walketh in the circuit of heaven. They're saying, like, God is somewhere else. We can't see him. We don't know where he is, and he's hidden from us, and therefore we'll just do our own thing separate to him. And that's what Eliphaz is saying. The wicked have the idea that God is hidden, doesn't know, doesn't see, and they don't care.
Okay.
Now, Job comes back in 23, and if you look at chapter 23 now that Josh has mentioned that, we'll read it. Verse 1 says, then Job answered and said, even today is my complaint bitter. My stroke is heavier than my groaning, saying that what you hear in my complaint, I actually hurt more than even my groanings are uttering. I hurt more than you even realize. Verse 3 says, "Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come even to his seat." So just like he's saying the wicked think that God is hidden, Job is saying, well, I feel like God is hidden from me as well. I can't seem to find him either. I wish that I could find him, that I could come before him. Because if I found him, and he says this again, verse 4, "I would order my cause before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know the words which he would answer me and understand what he would say unto me. Will he plead against me with his great power? No, but he would put strength in me." He said, I would just get strength from knowing why he's doing this. Give me understanding why you're doing this to me, is what he's saying. I'd get strength from finding God and asking him and just having him tell me and give me understanding about what's going on in my life. He said, I get strength from that. I would get strength. He says in verse 7, "There the righteous might dispute with him, so should I be delivered forever from my judge. Behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I cannot perceive him. On the left hand, where he doth work, but I cannot behold him. He hideth himself on the right hand, that I cannot see him. But he knoweth the way that I take. When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold." Which is an interesting verse as well, because oftentimes that verse is used differently than what I think Job actually intends it. Most people say, well, I go through the fires and God shall turn me into gold. I shall come forth out of this as gold, and I shall come out of it better than what I went in, is how it's often used. That's not how Job is using this. Job is saying that I've gone through the fires here. Remember at the very beginning where he's saying that about the assayer and being tested under the heat and the pressure. He's saying, I'm going to come forth as gold, which is basically saying the fires are going to test me, and you are going to realize that I'm going to come forth as gold because I went in as gold, is what he's really saying. Like, I am righteous here, and the fires will reveal this. And if I could just find God, I can't find him. I go to the left, can't find him. I go to the right, can't find him. I go forward, go backwards. I don't know where God is, but I'd love to find him, that I could actually come before him and plead my case, is what he's saying. So he says he's not just hidden from the wicked. Sometimes the righteous feel that he's hidden as well, which I don't know. Maybe in your life, have you ever felt like God is far off, like he seems to be distant in your life, that he doesn't seem to hear, doesn't seem to know, doesn't seem to see what's going on in your life, and you're just like begging God, don't you know the circumstances of my life? So sometimes you can get to a place as well where you feel like God is hidden as well, just like the wicked think, God's hidden, he doesn't care. And they do it to live wickedly. That had that mindset. Verse 11 says, "My foot hath held his steps, his ways have I hid and not declined. Neither have I gone back from the commandment of his lips. I have esteemed the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. But he is in one mind, and who can turn him? And what his soul desireth, even that he doeth. For he performeth the thing that is appointed for me, and many such things are with him. Therefore am I troubled at his presence. When I consider, I am afraid of him. For God maketh my heart soft, and the Almighty troubleth me. Because I was not cut off before the darkness, neither had he covered the darkness from my face." So he's using that in counteracting what Eliphaz says, where Eliphaz is basically saying this. He says, if I can find the right verse, he says, the wicked were cut off. They were cut off in the days of Noah. They were cut off by a flood. And then he says in verse 20, Eliphaz says that the wicked are cut off, but not us, meaning we're not cut off. The righteous aren't cut off. And then he again implores him to seek God. And that's where Job is responding, saying, it's not about getting right with God. I'm not going to come back to God and just try and please him, and somehow he's going to change his mind. Who's going to change the mind of the Almighty? What he's doing is his business. And my actions, if I just change how I live, how's that going to change God? He does whatever he wants to do, is what Eliphaz is saying. It was what Job is saying to Eliphaz. I'm not just, how I live isn't going to control the Almighty. He does what is in his mind. But he is one mind, he says in verse 13 of 23, and who can turn him? And then he goes on about the wicked. And this is the Wimmelbook part that I find very interesting. I'll tell you what a Wimmelbook is. A Wimmelbook is another word for a hidden picture book. Now, a hidden picture book, probably the most famous of all hidden picture books, is Where's Wally? Where's Wally is a prime example of a Wimmelbook, where if you open the Where's Wally or a Wimmelbook, the hidden picture book, there's one scene, right? And I think of Where's Wally reading those as a kid, and it'd be a beach scene. But on that beach scene, there's a whole host of different things getting done in that picture, and there's one picture where someone's digging a hole, and then there's someone else about to walk into the hole, and if you look at the picture, it's one picture with so many different things taking place, right? That's a hidden picture book. It's known as a Wimmelbook. I didn't know it was called those were called Wimmelbooks before today. But what Job paints in 24, I think, is a Wimmelbook of the wicked. Look at this as we have a read of this real quickly. Verse 1 says, "Why, seeing times are not hidden from the Almighty, do they that know him not see his days?" Talking about the wicked, they that know him not. He said, "Some remove the landmarks. They violently take away flocks and feed thereof. They drive away the ass of the fatherless. They take the widow's ox for a pledge. They turn the needy out of the way. The poor of the earth hide themselves together. Behold, as the wild asses in the desert go they forth to their work, rising betimes for a prey. The wilderness yieldeth fruit for them, food for them and for their children. They reap every one his corn in the field. They gather in the vintage of the wicked. They cause the naked to lodge without clothing, that they have no covering in the cold. They are wet with the showers of the mountains and embrace the rock for want of a shelter. They pluck the fatherless from the breast and take a pledge of the poor. They cause him to go naked without clothing, and they take away the sheaf from the hungry, which make oil within their walls and tread their wine presses and suffer thirst. Men groan from out of the city, and the soul of the wounded crieth out, yet God layeth not folly to them." Now, I studied this and read this. You probably read that for the very first time and says, "I don't get that. What on earth is going on there?" Let me put it to you like this. Let me give you like this. Think of a Wimmelbook, right? Imagine that Job is painting this one scene of wickedness, and let's say it's a country landscape, all right? And in this country landscape, there's lots of people all doing different acts and different things in this one page of Job's Wimmelbook of the wicked. And he's saying, if you look closely at this scene of many, many people in this one picture, he says, like in verse 1, he says, "Some are remove the landmarks," which means to remove the landmarks means to remove boundaries. They would set up rocks, right, as this is the boundary. In fact, I just read, I don't know if you saw this in the news, like a month or so ago, some farmer between Belgium and another country that borders Belgium, was it France? They moved the rock. He moved the rock. He was a farmer, and he moved this rock by accident, and he just moved it like 2 meters out of the way because it was in his field, and he moved it out of the way. Well, what he didn't realize in doing so, he actually moved the border of Belgium to France, and he actually increased the land of Belgium by moving this rock that was put there as a marker between the two countries. So that was just this year that this guy, they realized. He said, "Oh, I did that X however many years ago," and someone came along, and surveyors came along and said, "Someone's moved the landmark. The border should be here, not 2 meters over there." Well, that's exactly what they would do back. This has gone on. Now, that was by accident, but people would do that. Here's these rocks. This is my landmark. This is my property. And so people would come along in the night. What'd they do? Pick up the rocks, and they moved the rocks over this side, and they shortened the property of one man, and they increased their land. That's what it means. To move a fence. That's exactly what it is to move a fence and to put a fence beyond the actual landscape. So he says, could you imagine this picture? This is what the wicked do. He says, some of them remove landmarks. Some of them take away flocks. Horse thieves. They're stealing. And they take the sheep. This still happens today. People take sheep, and what do? They brand it with their brand and say, "Oh no, this is my sheep." Why do you even have to brand sheep? Because people steal sheep. Horse thieves used to get flogged and beaten and put into jail. Horse thieves and dog thieves today. There are people who steal dogs and say, "Oh no, this is my dog." They're like, "That's not my dog," and they steal dogs. So he says, this is what takes place. Some remove the landmarks. They violently take away flocks and feed thereof. The feed has to do with pastures. So they're taking what was someone else's pasture for theirs. They've taken it and removed it and said, I'm taking it, this is my pasture. And now they've put their cattle and their sheep on someone else's pasture. He says some take asses of the fatherless. Now, if you think of the fatherless, they're vulnerable. If Zach had no father and someone came along to steal his bike, it's an easier thing to steal it from someone who has no father. But if someone comes along to steal his bike and his father is there, well, his father says, wait a second, don't you touch that bike. I bought that bike and I know whose bike that is. You get away from that bike. And I come in and defend him. But if he is fatherless, he has no defender. And so people come along and abuse the fatherless because they're weak and vulnerable. That's the wicked. That's what he's painting the picture of. And so here's someone stealing someone's bike. Here's someone in this picture removing the landmarks. Here's someone else stealing livestock. Here's someone else putting theirs on someone else's feed and someone else's pastures. He says, here's some else. They take advantage of the widows. Men, I hate the, I'll tell you what wickedness is. Wickedness is the cash payday loans. They're wicked. They really are. They're wicked. The cash train and the payday loans, you know what they do? They prey upon the vulnerable who have very little money, and they say, right, we'll give you money, but you have to sign over all your accounts, and it's exorbitant amounts of interest, and all of a sudden they make the poor poorer, and the rich become rich off the poor. God hates that with a passion. He says, in fact, if you lend to the poor, do not exact usury, interest. He says, you just give it to them. You let them because they don't have anything. Don't give it to them. Expect it back. But not with usury. He says, here's someone else. He says, they're over here they're stealing from widows and putting poor widows into even greater debt because of their vulnerability. Verse 3, they drove away the ass of the fatherless. They take the widow's ox for a pledge. They turn the needy out of the way. The poor of the earth hide themselves together. Have you seen some of the places where there's been countries where there have been great famines? And the UN come in or some other international aid organisation and they're dumping off all the rice and the things like that. And then what's happening with that aid money or the aid that's getting there? Oftentimes in those corrupt nations, the ones that are at the top are actually keeping a lot of it for themselves and they're pushing away the needy to keep it for themselves. This is nothing new. Job says, these are all the things that have taken place in my day. The needy are getting pushed out of the way and someone else is coming and taking all the money there. They turn the needy out of the way and the poor of the earth hide themselves together. They kick them off. Behold, it's the wild ass and the deer. Look at verse... Oh, they take the widow's ox for a pledge. You know what I thought of when I was thinking that? It's the old Robin Hood, Sheriff of Nottingham, coming along on his horse with all his cronies and going into the poorhouses and getting whatever money they have, picking them up on the cartoon, picking them up at his little birthday money of the Robin Hood Disney one, where he picks them up and his little money he got for his birthday, and he has to give it over to the Sheriff of Nottingham. That's that idea. Just this violence, this wickedness that is taking place. Just skip down a little bit. We go to verse 9. They pluck the fatherless from the breast. That's an interesting phrase, and I was looking up to what that might mean. What did they pluck the fatherless from the breast? Okay, let's think again. Here's a young mother, brand new child. What did you say? Code Black, Bravo. Stealing children, it's Code Black. Well, think about this. Let's say a young mother, a young couple get married, and they now with child, and this new young mother with child, and now the husband has a farming accident, dies, and now there's this mother that is left to raise her child, and let's say that she doesn't have any money. She has no means to support this young little child who was on the breast being fed. Someone comes along and she's now in debt. She has to pay, and they rip the child from the breast and say, "You go and work," and sort of out of untimeliness, wean that child, and she is forced to go into slavery and to go work. Or maybe they take that child and put that child into slavery. Just some kind of wickedness is taking place here, and that's what he's saying. Like, this is, they rip the child from the breast. Like, there's no consideration for mothers with young children. He says they take a pledge for the poor. It says in verse 9, they take advantage. There was Ebenezer Scrooge. Think of Ebenezer Scrooge. Again, not caring about anyone, just wants the money. It's wickedness. All these things are taking place in this Wimmelbook of the wicked. He paints it. And he says in verse 11, which make oil. Oh, verse 10. They cause him to go naked without clothing, and they take away the sheaf from the hungry. Who often does the farming on rich land? Peasants, right? Or in those cases, peasants. They're out cutting the food, and they come and take that food to the master's house, and yet the master, with all his food that's been provided, then makes the peasants go hungry and gives them nothing and defrauds them of their wages, which the Bible talks about. It was taking place even in Jeremiah's day. They were defrauding them of their wages. The rich were having them come in to build, and they were building their houses, and then they were defrauding them and not paying them. He says this is wickedness. This is all the things that are being painted in Job's Wimmelbook of the wicked, as he goes through this list. And then he says, verse 11, which cause them to go naked without clothing. Verse 11, which make oil within their walls and tread their wine presses and suffer thirst. Here are these people working the wine presses so that the rich can have their wine, and yet they themselves are thirsty and they get none of it themselves. They are pressing the wine and they are making the drink, and yet they themselves are thirsty. There's some of the wickedness. We see these things today, where the rich use the poor for their own means, and the poor get nothing out of it, and the rich get everything. All of these things are the state of the wicked. Verse 14, the murderers rising with the light killeth the poor and the needy, and in the night as a thief. The eyes also of the adulterer waiteth for the twilight, saying, no eye shall see me. Here's in Job's Wimmelbook. Here's some guy climbing in the back door of some little house in this big picture. He's climbing in to go to his mistress's, or he's trying to climb out the mistress's window, and he's escaping. It's all these things that are taking place in Job's picture that he's painting. He says, look at all the wickedness that is here in this one scene, in this one village scene. Look at the wickedness in all its different forms. Murderers rising. Somewhere in here it talks about digs through houses. 16. In the dark they dig through houses. Do you know what they mean by that? What do they make their houses of? Clay and mud, dirt. And so they would dig through the walls to get in. It's like getting broken into. It's breaking an entry is what it is. Going in through the tiles of a roof, or going and smashing a window and climbing in. The same things that happen today. They would dig through walls. They're breaking into houses. This is the wickedness. Nothing's changed, folks. All of this is what Job is describing. We look around and think, this is the world in which we live. And this is what we want to say. And this is what Zophar was saying. Right. God sees this wickedness that is everywhere like he did in the flood, and he brings a flood and he destroys them all, and which we all say, yeah, that's right, God should destroy them all. But here's what Job's case is, back to Eliphaz. Look what he says here in, where is it? Verse 12. Men groan from out of the city, and the soul of the wounded crieth out. Because of the wicked. Men are groaning because of the wicked. And then he says this, though. Yet God layeth not folly to them. God actually allows this wicked to continue, and though he might have at the flood judged, but there's been, 4,000 years? 4,500 years between the flood and now? And how many floods have come in the last 4,500 years? None. Not to the global catastrophe that was. So Job is saying, well, sure, you can look to that one point, but God hasn't done that again every single time there's been wickedness that has overflowed the earth. In fact, he says there have been men groaning, and yet God just lets them go on in their folly. God doesn't always judge, it seems, immediately. And if I were to save time and go to the very end of this, he says, verse 24, they are exalted for a little while, sure, but are gone and brought low. They are taken out of the way as all other, and cut off as the tops of the ears of the corn, which I think he means by the tops of the ears of the corn. You come along with your knife and just, and they're quickly cut off. It's not like even they have a slow, painful death when they die, they're just cut off quickly and they're gone. And it's like, well, where is the justice in all of this? So Job and Eliphaz are really debating the same things that we debate about today. There's a wicked world out there, ladies and gentlemen, and God doesn't seem to care. And for the righteous, they look and think, well, where is God in this wicked world? And for the wicked, they say, he hides himself, so therefore let us be even more wicked. And those same responses. But we do know by reading the rest of the Bible that though God destroyed the earth with a flood once upon a time, he will destroy it again the next time, and there will be with fire. So he will destroy the wicked, and we know those things. But it might not be in the life of the wicked, and they may live and die and never actually seemingly get recompense for their wickedness, though he paints quite a wicked world in this picture book. But God is still just, Job says, and I don't know why he does what he does and why he doesn't do things that I would do if I was God, which I don't know if you've ever had that thought. If I was God, this is what I'd do. I'd wipe them out. Or as James and John said, call down fire from heaven. And he says, you don't know what spirit you're of. You don't fully understand the workings of God. And it's an interesting conversation. We'll leave it off there, and we'll leave off Job's Wimmelbook for the wicked out of Job 24. Go back and read that again.